Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Oregon Employment Department for today's media briefing. We're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to join, so I'll see you in a couple minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I am Rebecca Gibson King. I am the Communications Director for the Oregon Employment Department. Today's speakers are Gail Krumenauer, State Employment Economist, Karen Madden-Hummelbaugh, Pay Leave Oregon Director, and Lindsay Leahy, Unemployment Insurance Director. And Agency Director David Gerstenfeld will be on hand to help answer questions if needed after the first opening remarks. A couple of quick notes. This meeting is being recorded, and we will post the recording online and send out the link to everyone who RSVP'd after the briefing. We will take questions after opening remarks, and if you are having technical difficulties or are otherwise unable to answer your question today, you can always send us an email at communications@employ.oregon.gov, and we will be happy to help you. I'm now going to turn it over to State Employment Economist Gail Krumenauer. Please go ahead, Gail.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thanks everyone for joining us today. This morning, the Employment Department released the jobs numbers and the unemployment rate for Oregon in February. Employers added 4,400 jobs to non-farm payrolls over the month. By sector, the largest gain occurred in professional and business services, which added 1,000 jobs. We also, all of those gains in professional and technicals, or in professional business services, they occurred in the professional and technical piece specifically. So things that are like architectural and engineering design and computer system design, among others. Private healthcare and social assistance also saw a gain of 900 jobs over the month, and all other broad sectors of Oregon's economy saw little net change in employment over the month. Oregon also saw little overall change in total employment over the past year. There were 1,900 fewer non-farm payroll jobs in February than 1 year ago. That's a decline of 0.1%. Now, below that top level, trends diverge across sectors. We've seen gains as large as 13,800 jobs, or 5%. That's in private healthcare and social assistance over the past year. And at the same time, the professional and business services sector, which did add 1,000 jobs in February, has also lost 9,300 jobs over the past year. We also see diverging trends between the public and private sectors. Private sector employment in Oregon fell by 11,300 jobs over the year, which is a drop of 0.7%. Meanwhile, government employment rose by 9,400 jobs over the past year. That's a gain of 3.1%. And 7 out of 10 jobs that were added in the public sector were in local government. And that includes public K-12 and public higher education, as well as city, county, and other local government jobs in different types of entities. Oregon's unemployment rate was 4.2% in February. That's compared with 3.9% for the US. We've seen unemployment drift up a bit in Oregon since last spring. At 4.2%, though, Oregon's unemployment rate is still really low by historical standards. Now, over the past year, we've seen a slight increase in the size of Oregon's labor force, which had 21,000 more people in February than 1 year before. Labor force participation has also risen slightly. The labor force participation rate is the share of Oregonians who are 16 and older that are either working or they're unemployed, but they are actively seeking a job in the past 4 weeks and available and able to take one if it's offered to them. So that participation rate in Oregon was 62.7% in February, which was the highest it's been since the fall of 2012. Thanks again. And with that, I'm going to pass it to our Paid Leave Oregon Director, Karen Madden-Hummelbaugh, for more comments. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Gail. Appreciate it. Today, I am pleased to share that we recently celebrated the 6-month anniversary for the Paid Leave Oregon program. It's hard to describe to folks the incredibly heavy lift it was for us to not only launch a brand new program for benefits in Oregon, but also to do this using a brand new technology platform, Francis Online. As a program, we have done so much to be proud of since September. Since then, we have answered more than 220,000 calls. We've responded to more than 140,000 emails and contact us tickets. We've attended more than 1,400 outreach events and reached more than 4,700 individual employers and employees. We've verified more than 73,000 applications, And we've paid out more than $306 million in benefits. That's nearly $1/3 billion. While we're proud of these numbers, they only show the sum of the impact that we are having on Oregonians and their families. What these numbers don't show is the individual impact Paid Leave Oregon has had on people's lives. Behind each number is a real person or family who was touched by our program and the work that we do every day. Because of the Paid Leave Oregon program, a cashier can take time to bond with their newborn baby. A dental hygienist can take time to care for their parent with a new dementia diagnosis. A construction worker can take time to recover from a back injury. And an accountant who is the survivor of domestic violence can take the time they need to find a safer situation for them and their children. In the past 6 months, we have continuously been changing and evolving as our program grows and we figure out what works and what doesn't. One of the key ways we do this is by looking at the data. Since we began, we have been striving to arrive at the best key indicators to show how our program is working. However, this has been a complex process working with a brand new system and a brand new program at the same time. In addition, we have had to make sure that we are protecting our trust fund from fraud and our customers from those who want to steal their benefits using stolen identities. So all of this means we've had to take our time to get it right when it comes to reporting data. We want to be transparent and accountable, and we want to make sure that we are using the right terminology. We want to avoid giving people who are committing fraud any information that they can reverse engineer to improve their tactics. So today we're rolling out 2 new data sets. The first is our new data dashboard. You can see this on the Employment Department's website at oregon.gov/employ. You simply click on the media and news and media and then dashboard. And I'm actually going to share my screen here so you all can see what I'm looking at, but you can find that yourselves as well. This is the dashboard, and you'll notice towards the bottom is the Paid Leave Oregon section. And I'm going to talk through what each of these elements means as they are new today. First, we have ID verified claims. The number of claims to date from claimants who have been confirmed through the Paid Leave Oregon identity verification process. Then there is ID verified claims processed. This is the number of verified claims to date that have been approved, denied, canceled, or abandoned with no outstanding eligibility review. Then we have ID verified claims cleared for payment. This is the number of verified claims to date that have been approved as eligible and cleared for benefit payments. Benefits issued. Benefits paid from the start of the program to date. Claimants paid. This is the total number of people to date who have received benefit payments. This number is less than the number of approved claims because one individual may have multiple Paid Leave Oregon claims. Then we have the Contact Us average response rates. The current average number of days that it takes us to respond to someone who sends us an electronic communication through either our email or our Contact Us form. This is going to be a running average of the first 4 of the previous 5 weeks. We are excluding the most recent week because that data won't be available at the time of the reporting. The second data set that I'd like to share describes the average number of days it takes for each part of the application process. This is very important information for new applicants to know so that they know what to expect when they apply. I'm going to be speaking to the data on the right, the current customer experience, but this is the average customer experience now on the right and what the customer experience was in 2023 on the left. On average, it currently takes people 25 minutes to complete the Paid Leave Oregon application using Francis Online, whether they use their desktop or their mobile device. In order to protect benefits from people who may have stolen someone's information, we need to verify each applicant's identity. It's taking folks about 4 days on average to get through the ID verification process. While this is an average, we know it's taking longer for some people who might need to give us additional information to complete the process. For new claims, we must also notify the applicant's employer that an employee applied for paid leave Oregon, and then we confirm that the employee provided them with the required notice. We give employers 10 calendar days to respond. If they don't, we move the claim forward without their input. We check the application to make sure the person is eligible for benefits. There are many rules that apply to the program, and we must make sure that the person qualifies. On average, this is taking about 13 days, often involving some back and forth communication with the applicant. Once we approve a claim, we notify the state's bank, which then sends the money to the person's bank. On average, this takes 2 banking days. It is then dependent upon each person's bank to get payment to their account or debit card for them to receive their first benefit payment. If you add all of this up, it's taken an average of 29 days from when the person files an application to when they receive payments. This aligns with our 30-day timeframe for planned leave. That doesn't mean that there isn't more we can do. We are looking at how to reduce this timeframe even more. This includes hiring more staff to process applications and to determine eligibility. And as you can see on the screen, we compared the current timeline on the right to the amount of time it was taking applicants during 2023, where the average experience was 39 days. This reduction in overall time shows that our process improvements are working and will continue to move in the right direction. We will keep this data set that I just shared on the Paid Leave Oregon website at paidleave.oregon.gov under Employees and What to Expect After You Apply. Going forward, we will review this data regularly to measure our performance, and we will continue to listen and learn from our customers so that we can adjust, adapt, and improve our processes. We understand how information like this application timeline has a direct impact on our customers, and this is just the beginning as we continue to evaluate how we, as an agency, share information with the public. Together, we will create a sustainable program that will last for generations and lead the nation in its accessibility. I'd now like to turn it over to Unemployment Insurance Director, Lindsay Leahy. Lindsay?
Thanks, Karen. We are in our 3rd week of using Francis Online for unemployment insurance benefits. The rollout of the new technology is generally tracking with what we expect to see at this point, as most claimants are successfully using Francis Online to file their claims. As we anticipated, navigating a new system has been easier for some than others. Call volume to our unemployment insurance contact center has remained high. I want to thank Oregonians for their continued patience as we all adapt to using the new system. We recognize that change is hard and it can be frustrating. We want our customers to know that we are listening to their feedback. We're monitoring the system and we're implementing improvements as quickly as we can. While the old system was familiar to customers, it was long outdated and had many shortcomings that we are able to address with Francis Online. This includes increased customer service options, far greater access to claim information, improved accessibility, and added functionality like being able to send secure messages through the platform, just to name a few. Both staff and customers are learning the new system at the same time, which presents challenges, but we are seeing improvement with that learning curve. We remain committed to addressing customer needs, and as more and more claimants get acclimated to using Francis Online, we will strive to make continual improvement going forward. While I'm confident that we are headed in the right direction, it is important to acknowledge that our staffing levels remain low relative to our workload. That stems from chronic federal underfunding. Even with state legislation set to help later this year, that help is several months away. We leveraged one-time funds to hire 40 staff to help customers with Francis Online questions. But even with those extra folks in place, some customers are experiencing long wait times and busy signals when trying to call us. I want to remind customers about the how-to guides and videos on our website at unemployment.oregon.gov/Francis. Our Francis FAQ page is also a great resource. Customers can find answers to the most common questions that we're hearing. If you're unable to find your questions in one of those locations, we also have an automated chat bot as well as live chat. Customers can message us from inside their claimant portal in Francis Online or use the online Contact Us form to send messages and get their questions answered. The preliminary data from last week indicates the system is working for more and more people. For the week of March 10th through March 16th, we paid out over $14 million in benefits. We also received over 35,000 weekly claims. About 30,000 of those claims were for the week prior, so that week ending March 9th, and the remaining 5,000 or so claims were for any week prior to that. If you're looking at our media dashboard, it reflects the number of weeks filed for the prior week only, which is that 30,000 number. However, that larger 35,000 number shows that more and more people are getting into the system and filing for those prior weeks. Another positive sign is that the percentage of online filers is aligning more with what we would expect to see. For the week of March 3rd through March 9th, online filers accounted for 81%. For the week of March 10th through March 16th, it rose to 87%. Customers are also moving through their weekly claim submissions faster. Last week, desktop users took just under 10 minutes to file their weekly claim, and mobile users took a little over 8 minutes. Keep in mind that the data is still preliminary, and that setting precise expectations for the numbers of claims we should expect to see in any one week is difficult due to the fluctuating nature of weekly unemployment insurance benefits. But the system is working. Since going live on March 4th and through March 18th, Francis has successfully paid out over $35.7 million in benefits to customers, and that number will continue to grow. We are excited that the new system is more flexible, which has already allowed us to pivot quickly and implement improvements, including improving language to make the process to create an online account easier, clarifying the options and process for customers with active claims to set up their accounts securely and keep their information protected, and improving language in the questionnaires customers receive if they have indicated, inadvertently or not, that they might not be eligible for benefits when they were filing their weekly claim. One feature of the new system that I'd like to highlight today, and that we are encouraging customers to explore, is the submissions section on their account page. After logging in, customers can view anything that they have submitted in Francis Online as part of their claim. This includes the responses to weekly eligibility questions, their initial claim application, and questionnaires. To reach the submissions section, simply click on the I Want To tab, which is listed in the same area as the Action Center, and then click Search Submissions. Lastly, we want to remind customers that they still have the option to file their weekly claim using the automated weekly claim line. That number is 800-982-8920. This is a separate phone number from the Unemployment Insurance Contact Center and does not require waiting on hold for a live representative. The automated weekly claim line is available in 5 languages. Overall, we are pleased with the progress we've seen since Francis Online was launched, and we are committed to making adjustments to better support customers as promptly as we can. We are still in the early stages of analyzing and validating the data that Francis Online is providing, which will ultimately help us better serve Oregonians. Our data so far is preliminary, but it does indicate that we are moving in the right direction. With that, I'll turn it back over to Communications Director, Rebecca Gibson-King, for the Q&A portion of the briefing. Rebecca?
Thanks, Lindsay. We're now going to open the lines to members of the media to ask questions. If you're joining us by phone, please make sure to hit *6 to unmute yourself. As a courtesy, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up question. And if you don't get your question answered today, please email us at communications@employ.oregon.gov. Okay, I'm going to look for raised hands. And looks like first up is Mike Rogaway with the Oregonian. Let me allow you to talk. There you go. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, guys. Hi, Lindsay. What I'm hearing this past week more and more around the pain point of communication. We all know how complicated the unemployment claims system is, all the rules governing it, and everyone seems to have a different underlying problem. But the common problem I'm hearing is people contacting the department. And so I'm curious, what I realize you staffed up some, and you mentioned the chronic issues with staffing, but I'm just wondering, if you get a sense of whether that is getting addressed, or if there are tools that you could bring to bear to help get ahead of that issue, which, as you know, predated Francis Online.
Thanks for the question, Mike. I think a couple points. So the system, it is working, but there's a lot more visibility into the system. So customers have more questions about what they're seeing on their claims, and so they're calling us. What we ask is that, and strongly encourage people to do, is use those self-service resources. So if they can, use the how-to guides, use the videos, frequently check that FAQ page, which we're updating when we hear more questions from customers. We provide answers so that they can review those and hopefully get the answers that they need. We also have the Contact Us form and those direct submissions to reach out to us. We do anticipate, as people get acclimated to the system, as they kind of get through this, getting into their account, claiming for the first time, getting familiar with it, they won't be calling us as much, then leveraging those self-service tools going forward. But really, it's that staffing piece that you mentioned, that chronic underfunding. So we're at the tail end of what we would call our winter workload season, which is our peak workload period. So people will start going back to work, and we'll have less people in the system. And then towards we're thinking towards the end of the year, we had that state legislation that was passed to provide additional funding to the CDAP funds, the Supplemental Employment Department Administrative Fund. And so that will help us provide additional staff. We do think Francis Online generally will be, it's more streamlined. It helps customers more. They're able to respond faster, and we're able to leverage it faster. So long-term, it will reduce some of those bottlenecks that you're seeing where, people are getting those busy signals and such. So all of that combined together will help in the long term. But the short-term gains, we're still, encouraging people, please try to use the self-service resources so that the folks that do need to talk to us can get through. And I hope that answered all of your questions.
It did. I guess I want to be, well, let me ask this. Do you have you mentioned that the long run, it'll reduce those bottlenecks. Do you have an estimate of when when you might start to catch up with volumes? People send me their screenshots, and it really does feel like 2020 to me. I'm seeing the screenshots of their phone, and it's got 3 hours and 4 hours on it. And that's exactly what they were doing back in 2020. And if anything, I'm seeing more of them now than I was back then. Do you have an idea of when we'll start seeing that come down?
Yeah, we know that is frustrating, and I definitely have empathy for those folks that are waiting on hold for all of that time to talk to us. And no matter what a person's situation is, we want to help. And so we're doing everything we can. We're learning what we can to improve the customer service, to get to help to all of those people, and to improve the staffing and other things like that. I do know. Like I said, we're listening to feedback, and we're trying to do what we can to help people get through faster. And so I think that's what you're getting at, is trying to figure out if there's, sorry, I keep asking your question. And I don't know, David, if you have an answer.
Well, I think you've hit on all the right things, Lindsay. And Mike, I think it's really hard for us to give a definite date. Some of the information that Lindsay shared shows that we're seeing really positive trends. So for instance, the significant jump in the number of people filing online when we're just in the third week of the system being up is really encouraging. We know that even if it's a pretty small percentage of people that needed to call us just dealing with handling things through a new system, when you have tens of thousands of people using the system each week, that means a lot of extra people reached out just adjusting to how to do things in the new system. We do have a lot of new tools. So from those guides, from the FAQs, from the other things that Lindsay mentioned that are really good self-help resources, those are great tools. We also have more communication channels for people to reach us than we did in the past. The challenge is having enough staff to kind of respond quickly through those different communication channels. And we do see that we're on a trend to have that improve, but it's really hard for us to give you a definite date. It's something we'll keep reporting on our progress, though.
Okay, thanks to you both.
Okay, next up is Christina Gianelli with K2. Let me allow you to talk. There you go. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, and I do have questions for both paid leave and employment. I'm hoping that I'm able to ask more than one question so we can get both of those covered. But for the employment, unemployment insurance portion of it, I was able to talk to a few dozen people just today, and that's not even working the full list of folks that have been emailing and calling us. Some of the trends we're tracking is quite a few of those folks seem to be showing up in suspension status. I asked this question last call. Do we have any idea of how many people are showing up suspended and whether or not that's related to any errors on code or the system, the Francis system flagging people it should be flagging?
I'll take that one. So thank you for the question, Christina. And we do want to hear, about those situations. And, you've been good about passing along information when, folks are comfortable with you doing that so that we can take a look at what's going on with their individual claims. So weeks being in suspense or in adjudication is not a new issue for unemployment insurance. So each week there's a bunch of eligibility requirements that folks need to do each week to be eligible. And we need to look at those to see if they're eligible. So if they indicate that they were not available for work last week, then that would be an eligibility issue that we would need to review. So that week would be in suspense until we can complete that review. What is new is in Francis Online, they can see that now. And so before we would send them a letter, it would go through the mail, and let them know, hey, there's a week that's in suspense. We'll contact you when if we need more information. And now they can see that banner in there that says, hey, this week is in suspense. And so we're encouraging customers, look at your action center. If there's additional information that we need from you, the questionnaire will be in that action center. They can fill that out and get that back to us so that we can, review what's going on with their claim and determine their eligibility.
In many of the cases, though, folks are saying there's no message along with the suspense. It just says suspended. What's going on with those?
There's lots and lots of different reasons that something could be in suspense. And so they do just say suspense and that we're reviewing the eligibility issue. We are looking at that language to figure out if there's ways that the system will allow us to be more specific about that information so that right at that snapshot phase, they can see what's going on. But again, if they go into their submissions, they can see what they entered before. For some of those folks that I know that you've passed along, they mentioned they weren't, how they answered was a surprise to them that something was in suspense, and because how the questions are ordered slightly different than the old system. So people are going off muscle memory. And they're not taking the time to just double check their answers at the end. So encouraging people to do that to make sure that it's not a surprise. But you can go back and see what you submitted on your weekly claim and how you answered those questions. And then we've got information on the FAQ pages that'll help give some more clarity to what's going on. But really, it's getting that into the action center and seeing if there's anything that we need from them. And then we are getting to resolving those issues as quickly as we possibly can.
And as you mentioned that people are able to go back and look at how they responded, I've gotten screenshots from people that show me, look here, I responded to this question asking me if I'm away from my workplace. I responded no, but you're marking me as a yes. And when I asked last time if that was a problem in the system, if there was some kind of bug, you guys have said no. Has that changed since then? Are you noticing? Because these are multiple people telling me, hey, I answered no. You guys are saying yes. It sounds like a code error to me.
And so when we hear that, we do look and we can actually see what's going on in the system. We can watch how they're clicking the information and see their sessions just to make sure that there isn't some sort of systemic error. Right now, Francis Online is operating the way that we programmed it to. It is not that we're not seeing anything where it's switching people's answers or anything to that nature. What we're seeing is that people are going through and clicking and submitting those answers. And I think it's more of the they were expecting that away from your residence question to be earlier than it is in the sequence of the questions. And so they're thinking they're answering in a different way. But we do want to keep hearing about those as if you hear about them, so that we can continue to review those, listen to what customers have to say, and make sure that if there's additional supports or information that we can provide out there to help people navigate the new system.
Yeah, I'd be curious about specifically the ones who are sending me screenshots showing they marked no on that particular question. I don't know if there's another question or if there's just one that answers if you're away from your workplace. But I saw the screenshot and they marked no, but they're getting in suspense saying they're away from their workplace.
Yeah, please send those to us, Christina, so we can verify what's going on. Now, did you have a question for Karen? I'm going to ask you to switch gears.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing that as well. With the numbers that you just presented, I understand they're averages, but what about people who are taking longer than that amount of time? Do you have a percentage of people that are taking, longer than 30 days, longer than 60 days? Some people are telling me it's taking longer than 90 days. Do you have percentages for those?
I don't have percentages for you offhand to be able to speak to that. We do know that there are folks who are definitely having experiences outside of the average, for sure, both on the side of quicker and on slower. And that's just sort of the nature of sharing an average with you. We do want to make sure that if folks are outside of that average, that we're helping them to move their claim along. Many times we're waiting on documentation from them or something that is extra that we need that they didn't submit initially. So those conversations are sort of ongoing. Sometimes the individual may be waiting for their actual doctor to get them that before they can upload it. So those are some of the things that may cause a claim to take a little bit longer.
And as Mike had mentioned, it seems like communication's an issue there, because all of these people that I'm talking to that it's taking longer than 60 days, sometimes longer than 90, are telling me when they call in, they're told just to wait. They're not told there's any more information missing. They're saying you're just in the queue. So what's going on with that? Why aren't they being given the information that they need to submit what they need to submit?
Yeah, again, similar to what Lindsay was saying, and you've been good about this, is getting us those specific claimants so we can see if there's anything systemically going on. I also will listen to those calls, make sure that we're giving out good information, that we don't have any staff training issues to occur. But oftentimes when we are getting folks who are saying, I submitted everything, I'm just waiting, they're oftentimes inside that 30-day range, and they just haven't been pulled yet. And so when a person is talking to them on the phone, the customer service agent can look and see and say, like, looks like you have all your documents, looks like your employer replied, looks like your medical is in here. So you'll be in line like everyone else to be pulled next when sort of your application comes up for the pull next task, which is how we generate the order.
But you're saying most of those are done within 30 days. If they're on 60 days, they shouldn't be getting that response, right?
I'm saying on average right now, the customer experience is 27 days.
Right. So if they're going on.
Christina, I think I'm going to cut you off there. If you have follow-up questions, I'm happy to get them answered by Karen and paid leave later. But I do want to be courteous to the other people on the call. So I believe up next is Peter with Pamplin. Go ahead, Peter Wong. Oh, I have to allow you to talk. There you go. Now go ahead.
All right. My first one is for Gail. It looks like a loss in January is made up by a gain in February. Are we going through the same pattern we did last year with gains being offset by losses being offset by gains? I know there's no way to predict that, but if the Fed says we're going to be in for a soft landing, this seems like a more bumpy way to do it.
Thanks for the question, Peter. So far, and again, we've only looked at the first 2 months of data for the year, but we are seeing what I talked about happening as we went through the latter part, or through most of actually 2023, where we are seeing that there is an offset between the gains and the losses in a month. The losses in January were just a little bit greater than the gains that we had in February, but it's pretty close. So we're still seeing, I said, very little change over the past year. A decline of 1,900 jobs compared to February of 2023 is 0.1% difference. So we are still seeing, just in these first couple months of the year, what we saw over the last year, which is that they're pretty much offsetting one another right now. Now, in different sectors, that's different than what
Yeah,
we're looking at
realized
overall. Like I mentioned, where some are seeing those larger gains and some of them are seeing larger declines.
All right. My second one is for Karen, although David might want to chip in. Just eyeballing the approved claims for paid leave Oregon, it's roughly 2/3 to 70%. Isn't that pretty close to what the unemployment insurance benefits claims approval rates are, about between 2/3 and 70%? Because I think David has said time and time again, not every claim for unemployment insurance is approved. I guess some people forget that. But
Sure.
I'm just saying.
David, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, since it's a comparison.
Yeah, that's a good question, Peter, and you're right. With unemployment insurance, we of course have decades and decades of data, so we can look and see overall what average of claims that come in people ultimately are eligible for benefits, because we encourage people who don't know if they're eligible to apply, because we don't want people kind of self-screening themselves out if they might be eligible. So we do get people that apply all the time that unfortunately aren't eligible for unemployment benefits. We do also see that with paid leave, where some people are applying, and it could be a number of reasons. A number of the reasons that we've seen, and I'll count on Karen to correct me if I'm wrong, but a pretty significant portion are people that apply to get benefits from us when actually they work for an employer that has an equivalent plan. So they may be able to get those benefits, but they need to go directly through their employer and that separate plan that their employer is administering. And then there might be people who haven't worked enough in the recent past to be eligible, or where the reason that they're seeking to take leave just doesn't fall under the statutes. We really don't have enough long-term data to know what that long-term percentage of eligibility will be like in paid leave, because the criteria are pretty different between paid leave and unemployment insurance. We don't know if long-term those will end up being in the same ballpark, or if there will be a pretty significant difference between them. I think that's one of the things that, as the program has been around long enough to see a big body of data, we'll be watching and have a better idea.
I appreciate the explanation. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Next up is Kyra Buckley with OPB. Let me allow you to talk. Okay, go away. Go ahead, Kyra.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again. I was on vacation the last 2 Wednesdays, so my questions might be a little outdated, but I am also hearing from probably a lot of the same folks, and hearing from a lot of the same things as my other colleagues on this call about the switch over for unemployment insurance to Francis Online. And David, I would just like to ask you, one of the things I am also hearing about is the reports of long wait times when calling in. And you and I have talked about staffing levels before and some of the reasons behind that. But I'm wondering, first off, my first question is about the temporary workers that were hired for the transition, around 40 folks. About how long are they going to be with the department and able to answer calls? Do we know yet?
On that particular question, I may actually defer if somebody else has the answer. I can give a little bit of context about the temporary help, though, which is even before the switch over to Francis, we know that it was too difficult for people to get through on the phones. The switch to the new technology is one of the strategies long-term that will be really helpful in letting us address that. So there's the short-term issue of us getting an increased call volume just due to the change in systems. We do expect to see that call volume taper off. We're already seeing that to some extent, and we've already talked about seeing more people using the system online. So we think that as that eases, it will start to make a difference just in the number of people reaching out to us, and then the system efficiencies will let us improve that. But we recognize that the transition time is a challenge. Those employees have been helpful in letting us answer a lot of the questions that we're getting, which is around those things that we have some good tools on the website about how to create an account, how to do some of the more straightforward functions. they are not, they don't have the years of experience that some of our more tenured employees have to deal with some of the more complicated issues or to do the full adjudication process that sometimes has to be done. And if we're not able to get you an answer to that timing question now, we'll certainly get you one afterwards.
Yeah, and I'll follow up because it's a little nuanced. So we had that one-time funding to figure out how many we could hire. Then we've got some other vacancy savings and other things like that. We've also got that additional CDAP funding. So we know how long we thought we were going to have them, but we might be able to extend them or so let me do some research into that and get you a more complete answer to that question.
Awesome, but it sounds like they are still there answering calls or working. Yes, okay. And then I guess I just want to give you guys the opportunity. I'm hearing from a lot of folks that just feel very frustrated that they were hoping they had been using the old system to claim weekly benefits, and they have now had either their account put in suspense for a week in the new system, and then told to call, and then they're frustrated because they're getting these long wait times. And a lot of these folks are in vulnerable situations where they don't have an income right now, and they're feeling frustrated that they're not getting answers and they're not getting the communication. And I know that we've talked about this, and my colleagues on the call have asked questions about this, but I just want to give David and Lindsay, both of you, the opportunity to maybe just talk directly to folks that say like, hey, like we're pretty frustrated right now, and we were really hoping that things would be a little bit smoother.
Yeah, and I can start out, and certainly Lindsay, feel free to add or correct anything that I say. As I said, our goal is to get to a point where we're able to answer calls, to get people their benefits, to do everything as quickly as possible. We know that when people contact us for unemployment benefits, it's almost always a really difficult time for them. They've typically gone through something stressful, and they're in some amounts, at least, of financial distress. And for some people, we know it's pretty severe. And that's why we're here. That's why our employees come in, is to help people in that situation. And we want to do that as quickly as possible. We are confident that the tools that we're putting in place and the strategies that have been adopted will let us do that more quickly going forward. It does take some time during this transition, though. There were some strategies that were very effective to help a lot of people. For instance, we know that some people, it was a little more challenging for them to kind of link themselves to their old claim when we migrated the tens of thousands of claims from the old system to the new one. So we had the opportunity that Lindsay shared where they can continue to make their weekly claims using the automated phone system, even if it takes them some time to get through to us or to figure out on their own using the self-help tools how to link themselves to their old claim in Francis Online. So we built in some additional tools to ease that transition. We're committed to being able to help people more quickly. For some of those people, it's possible and actually quite likely that if their claim is suspended now, it would have been suspended even if we were in the old system. Because unemployment insurance is a weekly eligibility system, each week that someone is claiming, even if they've been receiving benefits for a month or so, it's possible that there's an eligibility issue that comes up based on information that the worker gives us or that somebody else gives us that we're required to investigate that can put that into suspense. That's the case whether we got the information when we were using our old systems or the new one. Right now, I think a lot of people are seeing that suspense language, and that's a little bit of a view further into the system than they had before. So that's causing questions. And as Lindsay said, we're exploring whether we can give a little deeper view to answer some of those questions up front. That's something that we know wasn't possible in our older systems, but we're exploring to see if we can do that going forward in the new ones. So I think the bottom line message is we understand that people need these benefits, and that's why we're making this change and why we're focused on making it as smooth as possible. It does take a little bit of time when you have so many people transitioning to a brand new technology at once for everybody to get used to it. And that includes our dedicated employees who really care about those people seeking benefits, who have been adapting to the new system really quickly, but don't have years of experience in it like they did in our old systems.
Yeah, and I think, David, you covered a lot. With the weekly claim line, just to emphasize that that's not calling the contact center. So it's an automated weekly claim line. It's available in 5 languages. And that number is 1-800-982-8920. And so while they're have other questions about if they can't get into Francis Online and get questions about how to set up the account, they can go ahead and keep claiming that way while we're working on figuring out what's going on. And to get them the tools that they need to be able to get into the system. And then, as David did mention, it's a weekly eligibility program, and there are eligibility rules and requirements. And so some folks are not going to be eligible for their entire claim, or for 1 or 2 weeks or things like that. So we do encourage customers to also use 211 and other resources to make sure that they're getting what they need to provide for themselves and their families. And then I did get a ping from somebody, so that those temporary workers are right now currently, it looks like we have funding through August, like the beginning of August. And so that might change as the picture shifts, but right now that's the current plan, is to have them in place through the beginning of August.
Thank you both so much for taking my questions. And Lindsay, thanks so much for getting that info so fast. I appreciate it.
Okay, final questions look like they're coming from Ariel. So, or Ariel, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I apologize. But go ahead and ask your questions, Ariel.
That's okay. My name's Ariel. Hi, thank you all for
Thanks.
meeting me. It's okay. I'm kind of going to echo a lot of the same concerns, and it was the phone calls, the long call times. I've even talking to some folks who said they waited for 4 hours plus just to have the call dropped on them. And even I tried to call myself and I couldn't even get through, was just completely busy. With the call dropping, is that, I don't know if there's more of a technical side of it, but are they being hung up on? Is the system just, the phone line system not working in a sense where their calls are getting dropped? Why are so many calls just being dropped after hours of waiting?
And I can take an initial stab at that. We're not aware of any challenges, and we do constantly monitor our phone systems to see if there are any technical problems. We do follow up on these when we get them reported. Most of the time, what we see is that it's an issue with the carrier. So sometimes people are on a cell phone, and some cell carriers have different protocols of how long people can be on a call and what happens if the particular cell tower or towers that their signals are bouncing through become full, and it will drop some of those calls. The bottom line is that we're committed to getting the calls answered as quickly as we can so that people don't have to wait as long. And that's why we really do want to emphasize it, that we've created a lot of good self-help tools that really do answer a lot of the questions and issues that people are calling us about. And we encourage people to try using those first to avoid frustration for them, so that they can get the answer on the spot without having to call, and also so that it's not getting the phone line so busy so that the people that really have to call in for us to be able to help them with their claim have more difficulty.
And I mean, like I said, I even tried to call and couldn't even get even a ring because it was so overwhelmed, so busy. Is there a way to get more staff? And I know you're on a tight budget, but what are we doing to try to get people there? Because the concern I'm having with people is that they're highly intelligent people who have looked through the website, gone through the questions, and still are desperately seeking these specific answers for their cases. They cannot find it online. They need to talk to a person, and they just can't get there.
And those are exactly the people that we want to keep the lines clear for. So I wasn't saying that everybody that is calling us is calling about things that they can answer through the web, but a lot of the calls that we get are. And that makes it harder for the people that do have to reach us to get through. We have hired additional staff. As Lindsay mentioned, we hired 40 additional employees before the go live. We're continuing to use those. We advocated for the legislation that is awaiting the governor's signature that will give us some longer term staffing, which is what we need. So we are pursuing what we can with the resources that we have to be able to answer those calls as quickly as possible. We do encourage people, even the trying to call in to see if the lines are busy. We know that the lines are busy. One of the things that we've seen in since the pandemic is that when people do call in and it's busy, sometimes they're calling repeatedly, sometimes using automated devices to do it. And that can actually compound the problem, just kind of hitting our phone system with thousands of calls in an hour that makes it really hard for people that are calling to try to get through. So we understand the challenges, and that's what we're focused on addressing. We do see the system starting to make it easier for a lot of people to do things that they never could before. So it will take a little bit of time, but we do think that we're on a path to being able to provide better customer service.
Great, thank you so much. And just real quick, just to bounce back off, you said you're waiting for the governor to sign that legislation. If and or when that is signed, can you tell me roughly how many more employees that you'd be able to bring on?
A few things about the kicker.
Sure, and it will depend a little bit. It's a percentage tax-based additional revenue that we'll receive. So I believe that it was around.
It's based off whatever tax return. So
I'm sorry, I'm hearing some talking in the background.
Sorry, that's on my end. I can mute myself while you're.
Okay, and actually I'm going to follow up because I want to make sure to give you an accurate number, and I don't have that right in front of me, but we will get that to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I'm going to bring us to a close. As a reminder, this call was recorded, and we will send out the link to the video recording to all reporters who RSVP'd, and we will also post it on the news and media page at www.oregon.gov/employee under news and agency info. Thank you to everybody who participated today for your partnership and keeping Oregonians informed about our extremely important services. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.